Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework, a JavaScript Special Interest Group biweekly sync. It is December 19th, 2019, our last meeting of 2019 and last meeting before 2020 when we all got a free flying car. Looking forward to that. Our agenda for this week, latest updates for SharePoint Framework from engineering, updates across the patterns and practices offerings, and then we've got three great demos today from Federico, Aakash, and then David, April, and Hugo. So the first one is going to be a really cool solution to guide people through a page tour, and you'll see what that means during the demo. And then you've got another really great thing, the ability to get a thumbnail from a command set in SPFx. Really neat to see that. That's a solution I've not really seen before in SPFx myself, so really cool to see that. I think everybody will enjoy that. And then finally, a really neat solution from three folks there on the Iconography SVG Wizard for list formatting. So three really cool demos, so let's get moving so we can get to those. We do always want to remind folks of opportunities to participate in patterns and practices and as well in this call. Always encourage you and invite you to do demos on these calls. So whether you've got an SPFx solution, and that could be web parts, application customizers, provisioning, pretty much anything, or something around any of the @PnP offerings. So that could be the CLI, the controls, Yeoman Generator, or PnPjs, or obviously a combination of those things. So certainly invite you to, if you have a demo, if you've got something cool you've worked on for either your company or your customers, and it's something you can share publicly, we'd absolutely encourage you and love to have you demo that on one of these calls. We've got a lot of stuff booked out, so we can't always get you necessarily on like the next call, but we will get you booked. We will get you on a call and really encourage folks to do those demos. I think it's one of the best parts of these calls to see all the great work those of you out there in the community are doing. And then, of course, you can always contribute on GitHub, and contributions on GitHub can take the form of reporting issues, which we don't love getting issues, but we always appreciate hearing about what might not be working or where folks have questions. We, of course, accept pull requests across all our projects. So any of the @PnP stuff, we encourage you, if you have something you want to add or fix or change, go ahead and submit a pull request. If you have questions about that pull request, obviously happy to help with those as well. And then the other great way to contribute on GitHub is if you have some time and you're looking through one of the issues lists and you happen to see a question that somebody's asked and you might know the answer to that question, it's great to jump in and help that person because it maybe gets them an answer a little bit faster than perhaps waiting for somebody from the core team to get there or waiting for the owner of quote unquote owner of that repository to get there and answer the question. So if you can help folks out, that just helps everybody in the community move along sometimes a little bit faster. And then finally, encourage folks to always provide us their feedback. How are these calls going? How's our documentation? Where else can we help? What else can we be doing to help with your development efforts? And of course, positive feedback is okay too, because if you like something we're doing, we can maybe do a little bit more of it. So always good to hear about what you like, as well as what we could do a little bit better job on. So of course, encourage you to get involved in any of those ways. And because it's our last call of the calendar year, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody out there who's participated and contributed and given us feedback and done demos and been part of our journey this year. We've seen phenomenal growth in usage, phenomenal growth in attendance on these calls, and it really it's fantastic to see, and it's really exciting to see how this has grown and how this has impacted so many people and helped so many people this year. And that's all of you helping each other. It's not just us doing it, it's everybody helping each other. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for being part of this. I think it's really great, and I think it's certainly the best development community I've been a part of in my career. So very excited to be a part of it with all of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And so some links there. So aka SPDev-docs takes you to the all-up SharePoint developer documentation. So if you're new to SharePoint Framework, for example, or just need to look up something around SharePoint Framework or something around managed solutions, all of your SharePoint developer documentation is now in that location. So definitely check that out. As well, SPDev-videos is our YouTube channel. That's our repository for everything's a repository in my brain. That's our YouTube channel where all our videos are housed. So all the recordings of these calls, all the recordings of our other special interest group calls, our monthly calls, as well as a lot of special series. The series Vesa and Waldeck have been doing, which is great if you haven't checked that out, and as well a bunch of tutorials on different topics. So there's series of videos on provisioning. So you've got a series coming out for PnPjs V2, for example. Hope to be dropping that sometime early next year. So definitely check out the videos. So if you can't attend this call, that's a great way to get caught up on what is going on in SharePoint PnP. SPDev-issues is the issues list for things around modern SharePoint development. So SharePoint Framework, modern pages, stuff like that. Every once in a while, I accidentally expand the scope of what that's supposed to cover, so don't mean to do that. But if you're having trouble with SharePoint Framework, absolutely do report it. It might be a simple fix, or it might lead to something bigger, but definitely the team wants to hear about everybody's experience. So if there's something that doesn't seem to be working or could be better, we definitely want to hear about that. And then finally, we've got two open source locations to check out for you: github.com/SharePoint, github.com/PnP. The difference there is just sort of historical. All of it, not all of it, there's non-PnP stuff in the SharePoint organization, but the PnP stuff in the SharePoint organization and the PnP stuff in the PnP organization are just there for historical reasons. But so you can check out both of those locations for all kinds of resources. So not just PnP stuff, but there's a ton of great stuff in that SharePoint organization. For SharePoint developers, lots of great examples, samples, tutorials, different stuff. Definitely check all that out. And again, thank you to all of you in the community, because a lot of that has been built up by folks out there contributing. So very much appreciate all of that. And with that, I'll hand it over to Vesa for the SharePoint Framework update.
Excellent. So quick update on the SharePoint Framework side. The growth has been quite phenomenal within the autumn, and this is basically showing how the SharePoint Framework third party, so customizations built on SharePoint Framework, has been used in SharePoint Online. And we are by far past all of the SharePoint add-ins and all of that. Actually, we passed the usage of SharePoint Framework past SharePoint add-ins usage already early 2018. So we're way ahead of the curve, and the usage is growing nicely. We are expecting, obviously, during holiday season, the usage to slightly drop down, because hopefully people will have actually time to spend with the families and within the upcoming weeks. Quick update on the SharePoint Framework 1.10. We've been having this slide and these slides on the call for quite a long time. There is a video out. I think I released that a few weeks back, where we actually demonstrate all of the upcoming 1.10 features. It is actually recorded on 20th of November, so it's almost a month old already, but it is still valid. So if you're interested in what comes as part of the 1.10, go to our YouTube channel where you can actually find that. Now, if you go one step forward, we did release one new article related on 1.10 features earlier today. So there is a kind of a 1.10 version stuff gradually getting out, but this didn't require any client-side package changes, so it's mainly a server-side change and the configuration support in server-side, so we're able to push it out already at this point. So, and this is basically how you use the pre-allocation, how do you book the space for the SharePoint Framework extension so that the page doesn't flicker or move as part of the loading of the page. Not a massively, let's say, impactful feature, but a lot of the ISVs are super happy about this one. Just a recap on the 1.10, what will be included. It will be extensions, pre-allocated placeholders. That is actually now out with the documentation. It works for all the SharePoint Framework versions as well. So you're able to actually take that one into use with any extensions which you have already up and running. SharePoint Framework for Teams, personal app support technically does work as well already, but we haven't actually released a native support for that in the SharePoint Framework. So on the Teams side of the house, if you create the manifest file by yourself, you can actually make that part already work. SharePoint Framework for Teams support for mobile apps should be out actually already as well. And then list notification API moved to GA. Now, the preview features, these are not available for you until we will release the client-side web packages, so version 1.0 Yeoman Generator. And this enables the search query customizations. and then the SharePoint Framework for Office, or supporting Office add-ins starting with Outlook Web Access. Now, the timeline slightly changed. Actually, in this week's SharePoint Dev Weekly, we indicated that we would go live still this week, and the situation actually changed after Monday. So we did decide to postpone the 1.10 until early January, but it was super close that we wouldn't actually push it out today. So during this week, actually not today, but anyway. But we decided to delay that because if there's any regressions or any surprises, we want to make sure that we have the right engineers working rather than spending time with that family, because we need to help on you if there's any surprises there. So this is what happens after 1.10. So native support for Fluid Framework coming whenever Fluid Framework is publicly available or goes to public preview. SharePoint Framework support in store, so in the app stores. That's actually coming quite soon, or that's the plan, early next decade, which sounds strange, but it's actually pretty soon, the next decade as well. Unified toolchain for Microsoft 365 workloads and faster inner loop, depth loop, and more extensions. And that relates on the question related on non-sticky placeholders. We are looking all of that stuff coming in the spring next calendar year, next decade, so to say. That's it from my side. So let's jump back to Patrick.
All right. So updates on the PnP offerings. So PnPjs updates, PnPjs v2, we're going to release that on December 20th. For those of you not looking at a calendar, that is tomorrow. I want to say thank you to everybody that helped and contributed to version 2. There were a bunch of you. I want to say thank you to everybody that helped test it. Very much appreciate that. And look for that release sometime tomorrow. We've got a support plan after V2. We've talked about that before. So we're going to keep features between V1 and V2 in parity as long as much as we can. So if we could port something from V2 back to V1, we will for 3 months. That's January, February, March. And then support for V1 for an additional 3 months, so April, May, June. And then after that, of course, we'll accept PRs from the community if there's something you want to add to V1. But official support in the sense of the core team will no longer be looking to support V1 after that 6-month period. We will, of course, V1, all the stuff will, of course, remain on NPM JS and all that stuff. You can always get it. We're not going to break anybody's projects. Nothing goes away. We just won't be publishing new releases of V1 after that date. Unless, of course, somebody wants to submit a PR, then it's easy enough for us to push a new release out. Did want to mention PnPjs v1 138 was released on December 9th. So that was Monday. A couple days late, but got that out December 9th. Was able to get a few things finished up. And thank you. I think we had 3 different contributors to that release. So very much appreciate everybody jumping in and doing that. pnp.github.io/pnpjs for the docs. Those will be updated tomorrow to the main document link you see there will become the version 2 documentation. And you will see a link in the header for the version 1 documentation. So just a heads up that that's going to be part of the release that happens tomorrow on Friday the 20th. Hashtag PnPjs on Twitter. You can follow me at Mediocre Bowler on Twitter, and certainly encourage you to do that so you can get the latest on PnPjs. Updates for the Office 365 CLI have a new preview version 2.4.0, so new beta version out. Or a preview version, 11 new commands around Outlook usage, support on listing custom Power Platform connectors, support for disabling SharePoint features, and a command for removing Yammer messages. So some great new features there. You can check out that beta with the npm install -g at pnp/office365-CLI at next. We'll get you that preview version so you can test that out, provide any feedback back to the team, and of course, if you see any bugs, certainly report those. More information, aka.ms0365CLI, hashtag Office365CLI on Twitter. Gitter.im/Office365-CLI will get you a chat area to ask questions. And then again, that docs link, aka MS0365CLI. So if you're not using the CLI, it's a great tool that continues to get better. And it's certainly something to keep in your SharePoint and Office 365 development toolkit as an excellent cross-platform way to manage your tenants, manage your installations, and so forth. So definitely check that out. If you're not using it, it can be invaluable in many situations. Updates for the reusable SPFx controls. React controls 1.16.0 have been released. So these are the controls that allow you to have the work of the body, the content of your web parts, though the notes seem to be a little confused. So we've got some fixes in there, and certainly encourage you to check those out. There's lots and lots of fixes and updates and improvements went into this release. It's been a while since we had a release, so a lot of stuff got into this. A great list of contributors there. Want to say thank you to everybody, everybody listed there in alphabetical order, and everybody else who's contributed over time to all of these projects. Can't say thank you enough. 2 links there for more information: SharePoint GitHub.io /SP-FX-property-controls. Gets you the first set of React controls, which are designed for use in the property pane of your web parts to give you a nice out-of-the-box looking enhanced editing experience. And this gives you a lot of great capabilities, such as a file picker, a list item picker, taxonomy picker, and various other tools to really save you a lot of time developing your editing experience. And then SP-dev-fx-controls-react gets you the React controls, which the documentation for the React controls. And those are the controls that are designed to be used in the body of your web part, or again, your application customizer would work just as well. And really, again, gives you a great jump start on development. A lot of great features and functionality already exists for you to use, and you can drop those right into your project and get moving pretty quickly. And then last but not least, the SPFx Generator. So no updates this meeting or this call, but do want to remind folks it's a great way to get your project started. Provides you a whole bunch of additional options not available in the out-of-the-box SPFx Generator. And but at the end of the day, you do get a quote-unquote real SharePoint Framework project with all the same Microsoft dependencies and other features and capabilities. But you also have the ability to add in a lot of additional libraries, a lot of additional frameworks, and things you might use to really help jumpstart your development experience and get you moving a little more quickly right out of the gate. And it also allows you to have a more consistent project initialization process across your teams and across your company, so folks can use sort of this generator to get, for example, a view project or something like that. So certainly check this out. Another great tool in the toolbox, and another great set of contributors, another place where people have been able to jump in and help out. So I want to say thank you, of course, to all of those folks as well. So I've moved pretty quickly because we've got 3 big demos today. The first one is Federico. If you are ready and want to take over presenting.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Federico Porceddu. Nice to meet you. I'm a senior developer in Avanade, Italy. Actually, I'm based in Cagliari, in Sardinia, at the Avanade Advanced Technology Center. And here you can find my contacts. Let's go. Today, I show you an SPFx web part that allows you to build a guided tour inside a SharePoint model page using an open source solution named React Tour.js. Let's see together general needs. Usually, SharePoint sites are user-friendly, especially modern ones. Sometimes, especially in the context of adoption of a new site, like a new modern internet, it is good to offer to users the possibility of having a page guide, like a tour or a tutorial. And to improve site adoption, you could create a video guide or a well-explained documentation. However, some users do not have the time to read documentation or watch the video. They would just like to use the new site. So for this type of end users, most of them, you can create a dynamic tour. So a user can use the new site while learning and all features of the new site. Let's see what expected results should be. So when you start the tour, A model will be displayed with a description of the highlighted area, and you can go to the next step or back, navigating inside the page. So the user will see the description and will have the opportunity to preview the advice what the publisher thought for him. Building this sample, I made some implementation and design choice that I want to share with you. This web part mainly illustrates the following concept on top of SharePoint Framework. So how to use and how to extend with custom render the property field collection data from PnP and SPFx property controls, and how to retrieve all SPFx web part in the current page using PnPjs, and how to include external React component like React2.js. In this solution, my choice is to persist the configuration of the page tour in the web part property itself without using a centralized SharePoint custom list. I so did for educational purpose, obviously, because I wanted to deepen the property field collection data property control. What about the property pane? The property pane allows you to choose the web part from a list of all web parts on the current page, specify a descriptive text like a step description, the sorting and the order according to which it will be shown in the tutorial, and enable or not a step with the tour. There are pros and cons having made this choice. So as a pro, you can use this web part multiple times into the same site. If you have a lot of pages you wanted to implement a tour. And as a cons, if you delete the web part instance, you lose the tour configuration. A really important side of the solution is the DOM dependency. These are critical points, so I like to talk to critical points and future improvement. The solution using React2.js, this open source solution, has a dependency on the DOM of the page. So what I did is try to minimize it using the data tag data sp feature instance ID, and take advantage of the fact that every web part has one. But obviously, this could cause a solution break tomorrow if tomorrow the DOM will be modified. And the other critical point is that the tour insists on the body of the page, so you can define a tour for web parts and not for the Chrome layout like header and footer, which live off to the page. Obviously, this aspect limits the solution, but as usual, mine is a sample, so please, I'm waiting for your suggestion to improve and discuss the solution. Let's go demo time. We can see this web part in action. Let me check. Here we are. So let's look at it works. Apply to this really cool site. This is the landing taken from the SharePoint lookbook sample. And what you can do is start with the configuration of the tour. This is the web part. It's a simple button. And the configuration, okay. Let's start the page. And we can show the property pane, and there are three properties. Button label, so we can change the name of the button and subtitle, obviously. And the most important part is the configuration step option that show our property pane field collection data. This is the property pane from usable component. And in the first column, there is the web part list. So you can select the web part from the current page. So here you can find our web part. Obviously, it is dynamic. So if you add or remove a web part, it changes. Second column is the description, and here you can write your hints, your advice for your end users. The third column is the position, the order, so the tour start in this order. And you can enable or disable the steps. You can remove a step without deleting configuration. Let's see the web part in action. So, for instance, we start with the first action, and I think it's really cool, this result, because I like it very much. This plugin is React.js is well integrated in a SharePoint page. So you can go, you can see the modal and the overlay and description you choose in your panel, obviously, and go to the next step, clicking this arrow, or just using the keyword next and back. And I think user can improve to the current page, not improve, they can learn and guide the current page, so they can understand where is my tools, where is my documents, and I think this approach is quickly and with a lot of effectiveness. So if you want to add a, where is it? Network connection. If you want to add another step, it's easy because you can modify these properties and just use the same property pane and add here. So you can choose another webport like recent documents, for instance, and this is the recent documents steps, the test and the position. So you can use like this, and for instance, deactivate all previous steps, add a save, and let's start again the tour. And this is from my current configuration. Let's get ends in the code. So we can see implementation, and I would like to deep just the get webports method. This is in the tour webports. So with this method, I can retrieve the current page using PnPjs, obviously, and just navigate with some for each in a section, columns, and retrieve all controls and put my state from React. So I use state, and I use this event for the property pane configuration starts. This event fire when you open the right property pane, and so I call my get webports and set the load indicator false. Load indicator is really cool because in is an out of the box offered from the property pane, and you can specify a loader and loading indicator delay time, and if you want to show the load indicator or not. So this is the load indicator. We check. So when you start edit, okay. When you start edit, maybe without refresh. Okay, because fire only the first time. And here we are. This is the loader, and I think is cool. I use this loader. Then we can see my custom render implementation for this step because of I need more space to write description. So the property pane collection data use only textbooks, and I would like to use text area, and I build the custom render. So this is the way, and just implement the on update events on and on change events, sorry, and on update for make persist the information to the property pane data control. The second class is the tour TSX. Okay, and I would like to show to you the component did update in these React events. I just call and retrieve the tour that are inside the property of the webport. So using this method, I can get settings, and the React Tour.js component use two properties, the selector, and this is the DOM dependency. So I designed I wrote in this way the DOM dependency because I need to retrieve the WebPart ID, the WebPart instance ID, and this is the content. So this is the description. Back to the WebPart. This is how to use the component tool. And so in the component update, I get the configuration and bind to the steps with a state variable. And I think that the code deep is finished and is all from my side. So thank you a lot for your attention.
Really great, actually, stuff, Federico. And like mentioned already by Federico, the key challenge of this one is that it actually acts as the DOM would be an API, so the base DOM. And so whenever there will be changes potentially on the DOM structure, it might actually break the functionality. So people should be aware of that. But Patrick, who do we have next on the call?
Aakash.
Okay, hello everyone. I am Aakash Bhardwaj. I work as an Office 365 developer at HCL Technologies. So today I'll be showing an SPFx extension sample that I contributed a while back. So this one is called the get thumbnail. So it's an SPFx command bar extension that uses Microsoft Graph API to fetch the thumbnail image URL of any file stored in a SharePoint document library. So let me show how it works. So here I have a document library in a site where I have installed this SPFx extension solution. So here when I select any of these files, so at the top I'll get this get thumbnail button visible. So this button would be visible only when I have selected a single file. So for multiple selections it would be hidden, and also for the folder selection that would be hidden as well. So when I select a file and I click on this get thumbnail button, so this little dialog box would appear. So this would first of all ask me the size of the thumbnail image that I want. So here I have given some options like small, medium, and large. So whichever option I select, so this would actually give me the thumbnail image URL for that size. So clicking on this copy button would copy this link to my clipboard. And now I can just open a new tab and try to access this. So same I can do for different sizes as well, like I have medium and large as well. So it would give me the appropriate size, like this. So this was the basic functionality, but like I said, it would work for any of these files, whether we have a doc file or a PDF file or image file, but for the folders, it would be hidden. So let me now quickly jump over to the code. So this is my main command set.ts file. So here in the onInit method, I am assigning some variables that I'll be using later. Like I have this site ID and list ID. And then I'm using PnPjs to get the content type ID of the folder content type, because that I'll be using later on to check if my selected item is a folder. So this was the onInit method. Then in this method, I'm actually making the check like if I want to make that command bar visible or hidden. So like I said, here I'm doing that check to see if it's a folder item and if it's just a single item selection. So only then the command bar would be visible, otherwise it would be hidden. And then in this method, I'm actually dealing with the code that the action that takes place when that command bar is clicked. So here I'm actually creating an object of this thumbnail dialog class, and I'm passing some data values to it, like this site ID, list ID, and item ID. So these three values I'll be using to actually fetch the thumbnail using the Graph API. So in this class of which object I created, so here I'm basically rendering a React component, my thumbnail dialog content component. So this component will actually deal with all the logic and would render all the UI components. So let me show this. Yes, so the render method is pretty straightforward. So just one dialog content component here that has other components like this checkmark icon that was used to show that the link has been copied. then the text, and this is the drop down from where we can select the size, small, medium, or large, and then the text field and the primary button to copy. So what happens when I select any of the choices in this drop down is, so I call this method called the get thumbnail URL. So this has all the code that that I need to fetch the thumbnail URL. So here I'm using the MS Graph Client Library. So this is the API endpoint I'm calling for graph, the site, list, and item. So the site, list, and item ID, followed by the drive item thumbnails, and in the end, I'm specifying the size, whether it needs to be small, medium, or large. So to make this call using the MS Graph Client, the permission that is required is the sites.read.all on Microsoft Graph. So this you can find here in the Web API permission request property. So after that, it's just simple, like since I have the URL now, so I'm just populating that in the text box, and clicking on the copy button is calling another method. I think this one, yes, the copy thumbnail URL. So this would just copy the value to my clipboard. So I guess that's all I have from this demo. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them in the chat window.
Great, very cool, very cool. Like I said, I hadn't seen that exact example before. So David, April, and Hugo is up next.
Thank you guys for your time today. So this is the three amigos of the demo today. So feel free to reach out to any of us. April, who is officially now at Microsoft. Woohoo, congrats again. Hugo at Point Alliance and myself at Catapult. We work together on this. So look forward to showing you what we got. What we're going to talk about today is an SVG iconography factory for list formatting. Now that sounds fancy pants, but what we want to show is that you can use SVGs directly within your list formatting. In fact, we may remember a few different demos that Chris had done flawlessly on how to utilize those SVGs through an application called Inkscape or another vector-based solution. So what are SVGs and why do they matter? They're scalable. They're 100% vector. So we think about icon fonts, the way we may implement those via CSS, but it's way better because it is more scalable and more performant, and we'll see why. So the question is it a file? Is it markup? Right, it can be both. We can access directly the SVG. Technically, an SVG file is a document, so we're able to access the properties of it. Specifically, what we need is the D path, which is what makes up an SVG. It's all mathematical, so think geometry. All those are little shapes based on mathematical calculations, and that's what you see in that D path in the SVG markup in the slide. Why SVGs in list formatting? So they're extremely performance friendly. When we think about utilizing icon fonts, you're stuck utilizing the collection of the fonts. So if you have a font that has 100 or more icons in it and you only want to use one, you're having to load that entire font, even if you only want one icon. So with an SVG, you're able to access the individual icon, making it more performant. Additionally, you have targeted scope. So where we might want to load icons using an icon font, typically that's going to come via an application customizer. We've seen that demoed in the past, but that's going to load globally. We're going to have to display it everywhere, even if the page or the list is not using it. So some of that code will get implemented into our page, whether we want it or not. With the SVG, put into our list formatting definition, it's specifically and highly targeted just to where that list formatting instance is being displayed, whether it be in a list or a list web part, which is awesome because it's almost like a custom web part. We're able to ensure the target of that individually. So we see what that markup looks like, and that makes sense to everybody, right? Totally readable, totally legible. We know what every little integer means and how it's going to work. Now, it's very confusing, and it can be confusing, and so we wanted to make it easier. We had an idea together on how to make it easier for the community to be able to access icons, and that's where the SVG factory comes in. Now, April is going to do the demo, so I'm going to hand it over to her, and then we're going to hand it off to Hugo to talk a little bit about the architecture. We're not going to get too deep into the actual code today because we don't have enough time, and we want to share that in depth in another demo. And we're also going to have it available as a sample soon. And a special shout out to David Ramalho, whose sample we're going to be using today. So April, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, David. All right, so to really showcase the power of the SVG factory here, we wanted to start out with this example of a meet the team kind of list here. So, you know, we wanted to make this a little bit more fun. So obviously we want to have the employee name, their job title, email, and picture and all that. But we want to know some fun details about this person, like where are they from? What's their home country? Their favorite sport? If they're a Marvel or DC fan, favorite season, all of that type of information. So while we could just throw that information into a SharePoint list like we see here and just, you know, have it be like this, it's not the most eye-catching, right? So we wanted to apply some list formatting to this. So we actually did, like David said, I used David Ramalho's list formatting sample on the small contact card here. And so our first attempt here is this non-SVG view. So we used his example as is, just added some text lines to surface up that additional information. So, you know, I'm from the US, I'm a Marvel fan, I like football, and my favorite season is fall. So, you know, that this is fine. We can see the information, it's usable, but again, is this the most eye-catching sample that you've ever seen? Probably not. What can we do to make this better? So let's dive into our other view here, our SVG view of this. And hopefully you can see right out of the box, this is just way more appealing to the eye than the previous version we saw here. So we have these nice visual SVGs that show that information, that same information, but in a very more user-friendly visual way. So this is all done using SVGs. Now, if we go into the format here and kind of scroll down, you'll see all of those DPaths, if we scroll down a little bit here, for each of these that we're using. So for the LinkedIn icon, and if we keep going down a little bit, so here's the home country flag, and we're putting in those DPaths. Now, again, if you're an end user, not technically a developer, it can be pretty difficult to figure out what this right DPath is for your SVGs. So we wanted to make a way where, you know, end users or people that maybe just don't even have the time to mess with that can just find out, okay, I want to put in, you know, we'll notice that Marvel and DC is missing here. So I want to fill that information in. So if we scroll down here in the formatting definition a little bit, you'll see I have this, if it's Marvel or DC block. So in here, in this if statement is where I want to be able to put in that SVG DPath. So without having to, you know, format anything, I can just click here on my SVG factory. And notice too, when I click on the SVG factory, it's not messing with my format open there. That's still open, it's still usable. And here in the SVG factory, we have a grouping enabled. So we have some teamwork and demo icons, and it's all searchable. So we can search for basketball here. But for my case, I want to use this Batman icon and the Captain America. So if the person likes DC, I want to use Batman. If they're a Marvel fan, I want to use Captain America here. So if I want to use this in my list formatting definition, all I have to do is click the icon that I want. You'll see that it's copied to my clipboard. So now I can just go back over here to my formatting definition. And right there is where I want to put, if this is DC, so I can just paste that in. So there's all of that big DPath information. And then if they're Marvel, I want to grab that Captain America one. So I can just go back to my SVG factory and copy this Captain America here. And again, this window is persisting for my formatting, so I don't have to worry about losing that when I go back and forth to my SVG factory. So we'll paste that in there. And now if I save this definition, there you go. Now we have the nicely formatted, there's the Captain America shield for all the Marvel fans and the Batman for all of the DC fans there. Just with a few simple clicks, I was able to utilize these SVGs in my list formatting and have a nice, great, visually appealing view formatting here applied. All right, and with that, I'm going to go back here for Hugo, and he's going to talk about the code behind in the solution architecture.
Awesome, thank you. So because we had 3 demos today and we had 3 presenters for our demo, we chose not to share too much of the code, but to talk more about the architecture. So the way we did this is we built it so that we would have a command set extension that would display that little icon. And the command set extension will call a library solution, which is our SVG factory. And that's where all the icons, the dialog to display the icons and things like that comes from. Inside that component, there's two elements. One is the SVG factory that I just talked about, but also another thing is an interface that we define, which is SVG icon library. It's really hard to say multiple times in a demo, but that's the name of the interface. And what that interface does is it says, there's one method that you must implement, and it is give me the list of all your icons. And then we have a bunch of other libraries. Again, they're SPFx libraries that we've created. For this demo, we prepared two. One is the demo icons 1 and teamwork 1. But we absolutely built it with the idea that other people in the community can start adding their own libraries. So you want to have a holidays library, or you want to have a business library, or whatever. You can implement it any way you want, as long as it implements the SVG icon library interface. When the SVG factory calls each library is responsible for getting all the SVGs. It brings that to the SVG factory, and it repeats that for each library that we've got in this set. So why did we use the library? Why did we not just hard code a big giant command extension? It's because the command set gets loaded every time the list gets displayed, but we don't want to load all those icons and call all those libraries every single time. We only want to do that when users are indicating that they would like to format the list. And that's why we've decided to use the SPFx library. But when we architected this, we absolutely architected it with the vision that this is going to be more like a plugin framework, where eventually we can load multiple libraries behind the scene and eventually kind of extend that. And we'll talk about next steps in a minute, but before we do that, let's talk about what happens when you actually click on an icon. So when you click on an icon from the dialog, so if we move forward, we do the gratuitous animation here, and it loads the SVG from the icon. And that's the library, the SVG icon library interface that's providing this. It returns the SVG. And then using the demo that Chris Kent demoed a while ago, we're actually using the same approach. We go get the path, the D path from the icon, and then what we do is we create on the screen temporarily, we create a hidden HTML input. So that should appear on the screen momentarily. There you go. And then what we do is we actually copy just insert the text of the D path into the input. Now, because it's a HTML input, it can behave like a regular control inside of a web page. So that means we can actually call the browser's clipboard function to copy this string into the clipboard. As soon as we do that, we destroy the temporary control, and now we have the D path in our clipboard. And that's really all there is. It's nothing fancy. And in fact, what we've done when we built this, if you think about it, is we use David Warner's sample on how to create libraries. We use Chris Kent's example on how to use the SVG D path, and we use one of the extension samples that I had built, which is to leverage the concept of popping up dialogues using the clipboard, as well as leveraging kind of April's skills in list formatting and things like that. So what we're going to do next. So this sample is something that we're going to be putting forward on the SPDev solution repo. We absolutely built it from the start with the idea that we would want other people to contribute to this and make it what they want. We definitely want to add more functionality in the future. Some things, for example, the ability, and I saw someone commented on that, so it's great to see that we're on the same wavelength. The ability to add a URL instead of an SVG, the ability to kind of insert your own SVG, not just from a list of SVGs, and things like the ability to provide animated interactions and stuff like that. We absolutely want to grow this to be something that people want to use. not only just for SVG, but the idea of this plugin framework, I can definitely see some other solutions that I'm looking forward to build that will allow me to leverage this whole plugin framework and do something that can continually add more functionality by just adding more libraries to it. So probably the most important aspect of this whole demo for me is not just the solution. I mean, the solution is cool. It was fun working on it. But the cool thing here is we took, it was basically David, April, and I. So I'm working with 2 MVPs. Well, I guess 1 former MVP and 1 MVP. And we're all working from a different background, right? I wanted to learn about using libraries, and this is something that David is really good at. And I wanted to learn from April in terms of list formatting and things like that. We all wanted to learn something from each other. We saw an opportunity to get together, and we're all busy. We're all, speaking at conferences, and again, some of us are getting new jobs and stuff. But we made the time to get together and to put this together so we could learn from each other, and we built it with the idea other people would contribute. So please, if you have ideas and you have MVPs or people in the communities that you respect, and you want to learn from them. A lot of them, I can't speak for all of them, but a lot of us are always excited to help other people and excited to come up with new ideas and work with other people. So don't be afraid to ask other people to contribute. I'm hoping that we can see a lot more solutions like that where people are getting together to build new ideas. That's it for me. David, or April, did you have anything to add?
Perfectly put. Thanks, Hugo.
Thank you.
3 great demos to finish off a great year of demos on the SIG call. And so look forward to seeing folks. January 2nd, 2019 will be our next SPFx JS call. And you'll notice our next general dev call will be January 9th. So no call next Thursday. Obviously, with the holidays, it's just not going to work. In terms of timing. So we're going to skip a week, but we'll be back with SharePoint Framework JavaScript January 2nd, and then general dev on January 9th. So finally, one last time, I want to say thank you to everybody out there who's been a part of the community this year, who's joined the calls, who's contributed on GitHub, who's listened to or watched the videos on YouTube, everything. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for a great year. Wish everybody some time off to relax over the holidays. Wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you in 2020 broadcasting live from my flying car. Everybody have a great weekend. Take care.
Thank you, Patrick. Thanks, everybody.